me cry. Sunshine on the water looks so lovely. Sunshine almost always makes me high. If I had a day that I could give you, I'd give to you a day just like today. If I had a song that I could sing for you, I'd sing a song to make you feel this way. Sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy. Sunshine in my eyes can make me cry. Sunshine on the water looks so lovely. Sunshine almost always makes me high. If I had a tale that I could tell you, I'd tell a tale sure to make you smile. If I had a wish that I could wish for you, I'd make a wish for sunshine all the while. Sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy. Sunshine in my eyes can make me cry. Sunshine on the water looks so lovely. Sunshine almost always makes me high. Sunshine almost all the time makes me high. Sunshine almost always.
Ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. It don't matter anyhow. And it ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. If you don't know by now, when the rooster crows at the break of dawn, look out your window and I'll be gone. You're the reason I'm traveling on. But don't think twice, it's alright. It ain't no use in turning on your light, babe. Light I never know. It ain't no use in turning on your light, babe. I'm on the dark side of the road. Still I wish there was something you would do or say to try and make me change my mind and stay. We never did too much talking anyway, so don't think twice, it's alright. I'm walking down that long, lonesome road, babe. Where I'm bound, I can't tell. But goodbye is too good a word, gal. So I'll just say fare thee well. I ain't saying you treated me unkind. You could have done better, but I don't mind. You just sort of wasted my precious time. But don't think twice, it's alright. It ain't no use in calling out my name, gal, like you never did before. It ain't no use in calling out my name, gal. I can't hear you anymore. I'm a-thinking and a-wondering all the way down the road. I once loved a woman, a child I'm told. I gave her my heart, but she wanted my soul. Don't think twice, it's alright.
Everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plan, a time to greet, a time to kill, a time to heal.
We welcome you this afternoon to Unity Spiritual Center of Portland as we gather to celebrate the life of Alan Watson and that divine light that he is and the light that he's shared with so many of us. I want to invite you, if you haven't already done so, to turn your cell phone off or unmute or something like that. And you know what that did to Alan if you had a cell phone on in class. I remember that. And, you know, I was just thinking about Alan's time here at Unity Spiritual Center of Portland as a licensed teacher, as what I used to call, he was our resident philosopher. He brought so many courses and so many ideas and so much material. He would offer us. Just, I'd get done with a message and he'd say, have you read this yet? And he'd show me his book and he'd show me his bookmark, and where it'd usually have at least 6, 8 different places he had already marked. And then if I mentioned something, he'd say, what is that? Where'd you get it? And by the next week, he would have read the whole thing. And I was still on chapter 1, and he'd be telling me what to read next and what was happening. And so as we gather, I think we're gathering in that consciousness of that vibrant light and life that has blessed us all. And I just simply want to take the moment and introduce Reverend Sylvia Hayes. She is the Unity minister at Unity Community Center in Bend, which was Central Oregon. And she has been a long time student of the course and continues to share her wisdom and her ideas, and it's just great having her with us. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Reverend Lisa. Knowing how cherished Alan was as a member of your beloved community, I'm really, really happy to be able to officiate so that you can just be here and be part of the celebration of his life. And I want to get us started with just a moment of intention, some centering prayer. I invite everyone to bring our attention to the holy instant of right now, the present moment where all life is lived. And we open space on the altars of our minds to allow love to flow and light to flow. We reach out, we know that we are still one with Alan's spirit, and that his light is still infusing our lives in this space. I claim his beautiful light continues to ripple wisdom and gentleness and love throughout all of creation. Knowing this is so, I say thank you, and so it is. And with that, I'd like to invite Peggy Baldwin.
I'm going to talk to you about Alan and me. I started the Course in Miracles in 1995. I'd had the books for like 10 years and finally decided to dive into them in 1996. And Alan, I was looking for a place online to connect with other people doing that. And I found one listserv that was run by a man named Alan Watson. And so we communicated a little bit by email. And then I kind of decided I liked this guy. So I went to one of his workshops in Sedona, and he was even better in person. Now this photo, this is the first time he came up to Portland to visit me. And I was all excited, of course, that he was coming, and not thinking completely straight. Do you remember Mr. Magoo and how he'd be driving around in a car and things would be crashing all around him and he wouldn't know what was happening? Well, we had kind of a Mr. and Ms. Magoo moment. He came up, now he's in a trench coat. He is in the Columbia River Gorge, so not really adequate warmth. And what you don't see is he had Tevas with white socks. Not good. Well, he wasn't the only one that was a little off base. I forgot, I heard in the news in one part of my brain that that there was ice in the gorge. And then I went ahead in the other part of my brain and made reservations for the hotel for lunch. And so I'm still not connecting the two. We got up there and the driving was fine, so I didn't get corrected in my attitude about it. And we went into the restaurant and they looked at us like, what are you doing here? So we went ahead and have lunch. I still am not figuring it out. And of course, Alan doesn't know the area at all, so he couldn't be held responsible for that. And so then we drove out, and then I got the connection because ice had come back in, and we were driving on roads, and they were like icy washboard roads. And I'm going like this with the car because I'm driving, is this my car? And then I go, Alan, I'm scared. And Alan takes over. He's not looking any too comfortable with it either. We got out of there okay. And when we came out the other side, they closed the gorge immediately after we got out. Is that not a Magoo moment? So that was when we first got to know each other. We were obviously very smitten with each other to have not been able to realize that we shouldn't be there at all. Many of you know Alan, and I was coming to see that as and I saw it even when we emailed, as a very loving, non-judgmental, present person who sees the best in everyone. And that's true. That's true. That is true as having lived with him. Somebody said he was a saint. Not really going with that one. We had the same kinds of challenges in marriage that we had, anybody has. Nobody has a peaceful all the time marriage. And you can kind of extrapolate from the fact that he was a head in the clouds kind of guy, and I was a feet on the grounds kind of woman. And so, yeah, you can see where the sparks could be in there. So we had occasional turmoil. But he was always, always, always my soft place to land. He saw in me something was much better than I saw, some of the time at least. And I will always be grateful to him for reflecting back to me who I think I really am, more than anyone ever has in my life. Alan loved the course, and he loved his students, and you saw that in action too, because he was not a discriminator against who he loved. He loved everyone. It's clear, you know, and then recently, I mean, the other thing is he never thought he was going to be done with his writing. So, you know, he did the textbooks, and then he did, you know, a bunch of other things. And so I don't know that he would have said this was a time to check out. But in certain ways, it worked out well for him. I mean, I think he like I said, he always come up with something else to write, but he was doing so poorly physically. He couldn't walk more than half a block or a block without being out of breath. And when we went down to Ashland on vacation, we were going to Shakespeare Festival, and it would take us 20 minutes to get 5 blocks. So it was really becoming, I said we should really get a handicap thing for the car or something like that. And so we did fine in Ashland. We loved the plays. We had a good time. We met a couple that we really resonated with. We had fun. And then we went to Jacksonville, and we went into a Airbnb that was a lovely old house. And then we went to dinner, and we had a lovely, lovely dinner. And it was a new farm-to-table restaurant in Jacksonville that was the best food I think I've ever had there. And we had sampled wines, and we took a couple of bottles of wine home. And then he came home, and the other thing I need to tell you, he was going to be going for cancer treatment. He had lung cancer. And he was going to be doing that the next week. And his death at the time that it came saved him from a lot of pain. I think that it was pulmonary fibrosis that probably got him, and that was very advanced. So he just came in, he took a shower, he got in his pajamas, he sat on a chair, and he just, poof, he was gone. It was the weirdest thing to witness. There wasn't any, you know, transition there at all. And we had paramedics there within 5 minutes. But I think, you know, he was planning, he was making sure his stuff was up on the Circle of Atonement's website. And so he was planning. And the one thing I wish I'd paid attention to when he said where he would like his family photos to go, I don't know what he said. I'm trying to get it out of here somewhere. But anyway, I think it was time for him to lay that bodysuit down. He was 83. All of his family smoked. He didn't, I want to tell you, he quit smoking 25 years ago. So I think he got more years because he did that, because his parents and his brother died in the 60s and 70s, and Alan made it to 83, and I think that's a victory. And he was just here with his course students, who I know are going to miss him a lot, and obviously I'm going to miss him. A lot of people. He touched a lot of people. So.
Thank you. That was beautiful, Peggy. Thank you for sharing. And next, we'd like to have his son, Benjamin, come up and share some words.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. First, I just want to thank Peggy and Rebecca and the whole family for arranging this. It's really amazing. And I want to thank you, Peggy, for loving my father so well. Because you picked up a lot of loose ends, I know. He was not a details guy. So I'm going to talk about my dad. So I loved him. He was a good dad. And I'm a dad now, so I know that's not easy. My dad was a teacher. I learned a lot from him. He taught me to be kind. Once we were driving down from some mountains, and he gave a lift to some people whose car had stalled. Another time, I was very young, and I was tormenting some ants. And he told me that, even though they're little tiny things, they have lives too. He taught me to forgive yourself and forgive others. Even when I had been harsh with him, he was always glad to take my calls and spend time with me. And despite some false starts in his life, some big ones, my dad kept going, and he learned from his mistakes, and he definitely found his way. He taught me to seek your truth and seek it boldly. He was deeply committed to his faith, but he had the courage to change his faith when it wasn't his truth anymore. And when he got to know his faith a little better, he left a very, very well-paid job in Wall Street to follow his faith. And he taught me to enjoy life. I remember jumping in excitement when he would come home with pizza and root beer for dinner. And I remember waking up with him, watching the sunrise over the Sierras. And I remember standing together in line when the first Star Wars movie came out. And I remember laughing at his stupid tongue twisters. I learned so much from my dad. So thanks, Dad. I love you.
I think the grief reflects the depth of love. That was really beautiful. Thank you. He is a special being for sure. So one of the most often stated teachings in A Course in Miracles is that we are not bodies. We are mind that is working through a body, but is not actually in it. The proper use of the body, according to A Course in Miracles, is as a means of communication, a means of helping ourselves and our brothers and sisters to wake up and remember what we actually are. Viewed through that lens, I think one cannot but make the conclusion that Alan used his body well, right? He was a dedicated teacher of spiritual truths and concepts. I hadn't known that he had left a previous career to follow that path. That is such a courageous move, such a heart-centered move. I remember when I first met him, I had given the Sunday talk here, and somewhere in it I had mentioned something from A Course in Miracles. Man, right after service, he was on me. He was so enthusiastic. He was telling me all about his Course in Miracles work, and then he ran away. And I'm like, okay. He comes running back, and he's got one of his books for me, right? He takes my email address, and the next thing I know, I'm in his Course in Miracles group. Boom. I mean, I was like, how did that happen? It was so lovely. And then as he got to know a little bit more about my work, and I'm actually a brand new minister. It was a year in June. But he was so enthusiastic, and I am based mostly, as Lisa mentioned, in Central Oregon, and I was leading a Course in Miracles group over there. And in the non-egoic way that Alan is, he was sending me his material for my group, right? I have still files of his incredible materials that he has put together and generously shared with me to expand my teachings of A Course in Miracles. I know this room is filled with countless stories of how Alan touched your life, and we're going to get to some of that sharing in a moment. How many of you have seen the movie Mr. Holland's Opus? Okay. For those of you who don't know, because I didn't know, an opus is actually kind of a masterpiece artistic work, usually a musical composition on a grand scale. And this lovely movie, Mr. Holland, is played by Richard Dreyfuss. And in it, he is a high school music teacher, but he has a lifelong, deep ambition to create a master musical composition. And he works on it here and there, but life keeps happening and moving him in different directions. And he continues to teach, and he gets frustrated because he's not really able to put together this opus. And he teaches a lot of people over a lot of years. And then, very abruptly, he's forced into retirement. And he's angry and he's bitter. Unbeknownst to him, hundreds of people, his former students, come together to organize a celebration of his accomplishments. And I don't want to give the whole entire thing away because it's worth watching. But the point of it in the end is that his opus wasn't actually a musical composition. His opus was the compilation of all the lives that he had touched over the course of his life. That was his masterpiece. All of you, all the people online listening, all the people who couldn't be here but are missing Alan, we're his opus in a real sense of it. He touched lives through his teaching. He just touched lives through his kindness, through his gentleness. My experience with Alan is that he's a person who really genuinely came to embody the course's main teaching of releasing our attachment to ego and to littleness and opening up to the fullness of what we actually are, spiritual beings temporarily having a human experience. He embodied that beautifully in my experience of him. It seems fitting to me that this celebration of Alan's life is happening in this time nestled between Christmas and New Year's. This is a time of rebirth, right? We make it through the darkest night of the year, and now gradually, each day we're moving a little bit closer to the light, more light again. We celebrate the birth of Jesus and the expansion of Christ consciousness everywhere. And we look forward to a new year and what that might bring. Alan's release of his physical body is also a rebirth. It is a form of rebirth. Now, he is probably witnessing this gathering as something of a retirement party, or perhaps even a graduation celebration, right? He's moving on. He's out there. He's not facing limitation. He is connected to the all that is, to divine mind. I bet you he's already involved in studying, sharing spiritual truths and knowings with other light beings. I bet that's still happening in the realm that he now gets to move freely through. The Course in Miracles suggests that we, the true we, the self with a capital S, for those of you who've studied it, that self, that we can't die because we're not bodies. We are consciousness. We are a part of one with divine mind. I like to describe this as we're tentacles on the octopus of God. We all have unique sucker patterns. We're not all of God, but we are part of and one with it. That's how I view this. That's what I think Alan is experiencing right now. Today we hold him, our brother Alan, in our hearts, and in this recognition of the end of his physical body, as his son just shared, we thank him for his beautiful demonstration of how to really live. And so it is, and so he is. And next, we're going to hear some of Alan's music, his voice, his creation, another little dimension of his opus. And the words to this song that you're going to hear, I believe, are the words that are in the program.
105, and it's titled "The Peace of God is Everything I Want." The peace of God is everything I want. The peace of God is my one goal, the aim of all my living here. The end I see, my purpose and my function and my life, while I abide where I am not at home. The peace of God is everything I want. The peace of God is my one goal, the aim of all my living here. The end I see, my purpose and my function and my life, while I abide where I am not at home. The peace of God is everything I want. The peace of God is my one goal, the aim of all my living here. The end I see, my purpose and my function and my life, while I abide where I am not at home. The peace of God is everything I want. The peace of God is my one goal, the aim of all my living here. The end I see, my purpose and my function and my life, while I abide where I am not at home.
While I abide where I am not at home, and he's at home now. So Duke Castle, I think we're going to have you come up, and then we're going to have that followed with a reading. Hi, you.
It's an honor to be here. I was part of Alan's group, and for 20 years, that was my church. So it's an honor to be able to read this. As we know, Alan was in Sedona for quite a period of time, and he and Robert Perry worked together. So this is a tribute that Robert wrote. I will never forget fetching the mail from the Circle's P.O. box in Sedona, Arizona, in the early 90s, and discovering that someone had sent me 2 booklets by a man named Alan Watson. Even before leaving the post office, I started reading one of them, a commentary on the fear of redemption, a section in the text. I was instantly impressed. The writing was clear, emotional, and true to the course. I thought, this guy really has something. I reached out to Alan, and after a couple years of exploration, in person and through the mail, we realized we had so much in common in how we saw the course that in 1993, Alan decided to move from New Jersey to Sedona to join us in the newly incorporated Circle of Atonement. His influence was felt instantly. While I liked to do topical classes, he urged us to take our students through the entire text, section by section, which we did over 4 years. It was a landmark time in the spiritual journey of all who attended, but his influence was also felt in a deeper way. While I liked to pull topics together from all over the course, Alan's Bible background had trained him to carefully draw out each sentence, and indeed each word. He would often read a sentence aloud, and by putting the emphasis on a particular word, open up a whole new meaning for me. I've been working on a summary of the text in which I compressed every photograph into half its length, stripping out the unnecessary verbiage. Once he was in Sedona, I shared my draft with Alan, hoping he would be impressed. Instead, he simply said, "But it's already compressed." He was right, and I abandoned the project. It was a fundamental shift for me to focus on drawing out the wealth that was hidden in each line, a shift I received from Alan. His writing was all about drawing out that wealth in a way that made you understand it, but also made you feel it, adding stories, quotes, and personal anecdotes. There's no doubt why his beloved workbook companion commentaries remain the most popular thing on our site today. I can still see him working on those every night on the deck at the house we shared in Sedona. Alan and I taught countless classes, workshops, and retreats together, with him often leading us in his original course music. He finally retired from the circle in 2006, but he kept teaching in Portland and writing commentaries. When he came to our 30th anniversary celebration last year in October, he sat Emily and I down and asked, with emotion in his voice, if we would house his text commentaries on the Circle's website in perpetuity. He'd been working on these for over 20 years. We were honored and immediately said yes. But right or wrong, we also took away the impression that he didn't think he'd be around very long. Alan was a gentle soul. A mutual friend called him the quintessential reasonable man. He gave so much to students of A Course in Miracles. Even if you don't know his writings, all of those who've benefited from the Circle's work, and all of us in the Circle, me very much included, owe him a debt of gratitude.
Thank you, Duke, and thank you to Robert for that wonderful tribute. We're going to hear another tribute now, one from Mary Ann Buchowski, and it's going to be read by Veronica Vaughn.
Hello, everyone. I think, does this move closer somehow? Good. Thank you. Alan was a dear, dear, dear friend. We both loved the Course in Miracles, and we joined over its message. When Alan was writing the workbook companion, he would fax me the comments each day. What a joy. Robert apparently mentioned when he was writing them too. After he moved to Portland, we had a scheduled weekly phone call and that continued our friendship that way. During Alan's recent visit to Sedona for a Robert Perry workshop on the Holy Relationship, we sat together, hung out together with friends, and he stayed in my home. Thank you, Alan, for being such a dear, dear, dear friend. And now I'm reading Mary Ann Buchowski's tribute to Alan.
And Marianne worked at the Circle of Atonement in Sedona and is a teacher of the course in Ottawa, Canada. She wrote this tribute shortly after Alan's passing in September, so it's worded that way. This week, we dedicate Circle News to our beloved brother and dearest friend, Alan Watson, who passed on last week. Even though, quote, there is no death, the Son of God is free, unquote, we are deeply saddened by his sudden departure and will miss him greatly. Alan was Robert's teaching partner for several years, having been invited by Robert to join him in the newly born Circle of Atonement in 1993. He was a course teacher par excellence who contributed greatly to the Circle. His fidelity to the course and his integrity as a teacher were exemplary and inspirational. When Alan wrote booklets, articles on course topics, and text commentaries, and was primarily known through his 2-volume A Workbook Companion, although his workbook commentaries were written years ago, they still attract a wide and faithful readership of course students who see them as true companions on their journey through the workbook. I think that Alan has had such a strong following because, as well as having a solid understanding of the course, he had the gift of conveying it in a very down-to-earth way. Just gonna find the rest of it. Okay, Spirit, are you? Wait, she says more over here. Okay. I still hear students say that they feel as if Alan is right there with them and seems to understand them as they work through the lessons. He was always ready and open to talking about his insights and his own experiences and challenges as he practiced and applied the lessons in his own life. As I prepared to write this, I went back and read some of Alan's commentaries, and I, too, could feel him right there talking with me about the lessons, and felt as if I was getting to know him all over again. I also had the privilege of working with Alan, and I had even the greater privilege of being his friend. As well as being an excellent course teacher, Alan was an excellent course student, practitioner, and a demonstration of the course's teaching. He truly endeavored and succeeded in significantly doing as Jesus asked. Quote, "Teach not that I died in vain. Teach rather that I did not die by demonstrating that I live in you." As I write this, I'm practicing lesson 265. Quote, "Creation's gentleness is all I see," unquote. And it came to me how easy it was to see creation's gentleness in Alan. The fourth characteristic of God's teacher is gentleness. And that was a hallmark of Alan. He was a gentle and loving soul, a person of substance. It was always a joy to be in his presence. When we used to hold workshops and retreats in Sedona, Alan would start things off by singing one of his many songs he had written based on the lessons. I can still hear him singing and strumming his guitar. I can still hear his deep, melodic voice guiding us through a course-based visualization. If Alan didn't achieve perfection as a teacher of God, I do think he came very close. And I have confidence that he will continue his spiritual journey and return to the world as an advanced teacher. God gave special gifts to his teacher, Alan, because he had a special role in his plan for atonement here. And I am certain that he will be back to complete his role and be truly helpful to even more people, extending his hand to reach his brothers and to help them walk along the road with him, as he sang in I Cannot Go Without You. And there are some of the things about, I cannot go without you, for you are part of me. Come take my hand, my brother, my sister, and go to God with me. Alan. Spirit are you, holy are you, eternal, free and whole, at peace and in joy forever in the heart of God. Spirit are you, free of all limits, safe and healed and whole, shining in the reflection of God's love. We honor and love you and are so grateful to you. You were a mighty companion, and we will miss you greatly. We send you our blessings as you continue your joyful journey back home to God. Love, Mary Ann Bukowski, Circle Teacher. Thank you.
Both of those pieces were beautiful. Thank you, Veronica, and thank you, Mary Ann. And now is Drew here? Perfect. So this is a chance for any of you that would like to share something about Alan. We'll just raise a hand, and Drew will bring a microphone, and you can just speak it into the circle here.
I know it could be hard to start. I just want to share a couple more things. You know, I was so fortunate to walk with Alan and to have him in this community. I remember when we first began, and Reverend Dick, it's so good to see you here also. Reverend Dick had left, and all of our music had left. And I remember I just said, we're going to pray this into being. And Alan said, it's going to show up soon. And I just said, okay. And he said, now. And by the next week, he came in and he said, there's someone I want you to meet. And it was Sidney Steen, who became our music director for about 15 years. And he just said, now I can take a breath. And soon after that, he began teaching Unity classes and different things. He became a licensed Unity teacher. And one of the times he came to me, he said, can you just teach this class for me? I don't remember, Peggy, where you all were going, but I said, sure. And he said, I'll send you some notes. And I said, well, it's on 12 Powers. I've got some. He sent me 105 pages. And I said, Alan, what am I supposed to do with these? They were single spaced. And I said, I've got a class. I've done. And then he said, isn't it enough? I've got another 80 pages. And I just said, okay, Alan, send me whatever you want. And I looked at all of it. And I just thought that's why I call him our philosopher. He just loved all that material. And he said, it won't take you long to read it. The class is in 2 days. And literally, I don't remember what was going on, but I just had to laugh. And I thought, that is our Alan. What a beautiful soul. And I did want to share, the last Sunday he was here and he was getting ready to go on vacation. And he had told me about the diagnosis and the different things. And he said, I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to enjoy myself and my wife. And he said, and when I get home, I'll decide what I need to do. And I remember looking at him, just blessing him and thinking that soul is moving on. And he just made that decision as he did everything else with such peace and grace and beauty.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Lisa. Who would like to share next? Right in the back. Beth?
I had the great honor of taking one of Alan's classes. And he was, like Lisa said about all the things he sent her, he was that prepared to teach every class. He came in with everything he needed. And I was there, I'm a sound person. I usually help with the technical stuff. He didn't need my help. He was prepared. He had it all set up. But what I really loved was his passion for righting the wrongs that have been done to Mary Magdalene. He was so passionate about making sure people knew the real story and wanted to teach that every time. And I loved that about him. It was so special that he said, this woman has been wronged and we need to write her story. You don't find that very often.
Mm-mm.
Thank you.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else with the sharing? There we go.
I'm supposed to say something, and I have no idea what I'm going to say. I remember Alan when he first came to be a teacher. He wasn't very good, but he was consistent. He wanted to teach. And so it was almost like I tolerated him at that particular time, just beginning, okay? But he was determined to teach material that would change people's lives, including his own.
Mm-hmm.
And he invested himself into this material, A Course in Miracles. And it changed his life dramatically. I'm sure he must have felt at times along the way, boy, look what's happening in my own life. Look what's happening the way I see life. I never saw like this before. See, it's more than the words. It's what the words point to that makes the difference. And so he kept on keeping on. I didn't see him in his full glory, but I did hear of him in his full glory. That is, teaching, and appreciated, and having followers that says, if he can do it, maybe I can do it too. He was a prime example of what it's about to spiritually awaken and not give up because times were tough and hard. But he was satisfied only with the moment because he knew there was so much more to it. And I feel he would be saying these same words if he were here with us today. He's present. Yeah. Would you miss your own funeral? No, of course not. The own memorial service. He's right here. He's checking out to see who's going to talk next. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. He whispered that it was me when he said who was going to speak next. My name is Mark Adams, and I am new to Unity and new to A Course in Miracles just within the last 3 years. And Alan was not only a teacher, he was a mentor to me. And a quote that I love and I hear really often is what Ram Dass said, that we're all here walking each other home. And Alan embodied that for me. He took the way that Robert Perry described it and drilled it down to the power of each word. And for me in my journey, I've gotten to a place where I recognize that my ego is seeking, but my heart knows. And to continue to look to texts and podcasts and workshops and all this stuff is like, that's the seeking. At the end of all of those is the mirror in which I see my true self that has always been here, that has always been whole and complete and divine. And Alan lived that. Mm-hmm. So the way that he embodied and met people in that special relationship was really, really special and unique, and a huge part of my growth and my learning. And I'm just so, so grateful. I am marinating in this stew of love and appreciation for a man and his work and his soul and his legacy. And I'm deeply honored to be here.
We had a hand over here.
Hi, I'm Phil Watson, Alan's second son. So thank you all for being here. It's very touching to see all the lives that he had an impact on and touched. One of the things that I've been doing recently is preparing for a move, converting some analog cassettes to digital, and I came upon some tapes my father recorded that exemplify who he was. One was a recording of his reading the 500 Hats of Bartholomew Cubbins to my brother and I, which is my favorite recording because I've listened to it many times. He just loved books, as you all know, and Peggy knows the most. And he loved reading them to us, reading them. In fact, on the opposite side of a tape I found was a recording of something like 25 spiritual books that he wanted to read at that time. He recorded a list of titles for himself to read. In some way, I've passed that on because I was proud to find one of my children's bookshelf full top to bottom. I mean, really full of library books. And her goal is to read them through before we move. The other things I came upon in this cassette was him singing some hymns, and you just heard one.
Yeah.
He played guitar, he loved music. I've picked that up some too. One of my fond memories is in his apartment in New Jersey, reclining on his easy chairs, going through his record collection, listening to some of the songs we heard before, Peter, Paul and Mary, Carpenters, John Denver, Simon and Garfunkel. We would just sit back with cats in our laps. You remember that? I've learned a lot from my father, and I am proud of what he's passed on to me and to us and to you all. And I trust that with as much as he was measured by God, that he made God our Father happy as he's made you all happy. And thank you, Dad, for passing all that on.
Beautiful. Is there anyone else who would like to share? In the back, Drew.
I hope I can do this. I wrote this for the family. I wasn't planning on reading it, but I will. While I have always been both spiritual and a seeker, it was with both joyfulness and serenity that I finally found my particular path to the truth through Alan Watson's teachings of A Course in Miracles. I will be forever grateful that the universe brought this kind, wise, awakened, patient, present, diligent, and committed scholar of the Course into my life to become my Course in Miracles study group teacher these last 18 years at Unity Church of Portland. Infinitely astute and knowledgeable about the Course, Alan was almost always able to pinpoint chapter and verse in the Course's various volumes in answer to our questions, causing our amazement at his astounding recall. If he wasn't able to find what he was looking for, right then he would research it and get back with the information the following week. With soft-spoken patience, devotion, and forbearance in answering our questions, whether complicated or simplistic, he made it clear that he too was still a student, along with us, and this was not a hierarchy, but brothers and sisters helping each other find our way home. Sharing a favorite piece of music or a relevant, meaningful memory, especially about his dogs, Alan's eyes would at times fill with tears and his voice would crack, and we would be touched by the depth of his sensitivity and kind-heartedness and his willingness to share that. I mentioned in class a couple of times over the years that I at times felt as if we were almost studying in a cave in the Holy Lands. That got me some good laughs, but I meant it. He was my brother, and as is whoever is reading this, me, and my beloved teacher, and I will miss him always.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Beautiful. Anyone else? So, those of you who maybe want to pass on some thoughts about or to Alan, but not to speak up, you can write them on the board right here outside the door. There are slips of paper there as well. You can share those. The family is collecting those. Also, as is so fitting of Alan's generosity just continuing to roll out, he donated many of his books to this Unity, and they're now made available to anyone who wants to look at them and take any of them home, and that's on the table out there. The course says giving and receiving is the same, so I suspect you taking one of Alan's book is a receiving for him as well. So if that's all, if no one else is raising a hand here, this has been designed to go downstairs to share a meal and some refreshments down there and continue the celebration of this amazing person and being's life. Thank you for being here. Would you like to lead them down? Pardon? Yes. I was going to say that.
We